from today's Old Testament lesson. But Naaman became angry, went away, saying, I thought that for me he would surely come out and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, and would wave his hand over the spot and cure the leprosy. In the name of one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. One of the first lessons that a student at a liberal arts college is forced to learn is that many of the things they had assumed were true throughout their childhood might in fact have been assumptions that they never previously questioned because believing in them was too darn convenient to change. Such a lesson isn't a singular one. In fact, it's a recurring lesson that should change the shape of a person's internal mental furniture. It is a triumph of mentors and teachers when each new student gains the ability to reflect on what they have never challenged before. It's from this very need to transform a new college student, a budding adult, that has been restricted in certainty, pushing it towards adaptability and growth, that the name for second-year college students comes from. Sophomore literally means wise fool, though its root is shrouded a little bit, but it probably comes from the Greek sophizeste, which means to learn wisdom or become wise. It's only after we have the ability to recognize that our ways of thinking about the world might be fundamentally flawed that we gain the ability to accept some new way of thinking. And what's more, that along the way, we must change. Right now, we are here in our church going through our acts of worship and practicing what it is we believe it means to have a relationship with God through community with each other. During this time, we expect certain things. One of those is that I'll get up here and speak to you as best I have the skill and share with you some meaningful, or at least fully considered, thoughts about Jesus Christ. Later, you expect me to move my hands in some actions over the altar and say a prayer. And that is all very reasonable. I've actually spent a considerable amount of effort to make those very assumptions as reliable as possible. There are no tricks or gimmicks here. No surprise altar calls or unexpected announcements. No calling you out by name. In comparison to those assumptions that we have about our lives, the great General Naaman from today's Old Testament lesson has some ways he thinks the events in his story will go. The culture and context that he comes from is one filled with mystical thinking, along with any number of people claiming to have great powers granted to them by some deity. It's so common for him, in fact, that Naaman has brought all of the things he reasonably thinks he might need in this situation. If the healer has some rare item that he demands, then Naaman has brought the money to buy such a thing. If the so-called prophet in Samaria requires him to perform a great feat in order to prove his worth of being healed, then he has his retainers and his own skill to accomplish such a task. If it would take time and repetition of some strange set of actions, then I'm sure Naaman has steeled himself to endure through it. So when the great and mighty general, who is rightly feared even by kings, gets told to do something simple, like washing in the river Jordan, all of those assumptions, preparations, and resolve that he had brought with him is rendered useless. This doesn't follow the scripts. How could this be the way that he receives the healing? Something more like what he's used to is supposed to happen, isn't it? And he balks, offended, affronted. And I don't think we should hold that against him. Naaman cares so much for the recommendation from his wife, who is supporting a loved servant. And having come all this way with all of his retainers and a message from his sovereign Lord in his support, his love for all of those people around him seems insulted too. Such as it is, his love for them and consideration for their support of him burns inside of him. But what comes out is anger. Naaman is remote, in another place at another time. Through him and his story, we gain the chance to see something that is very human. Something we share with him. In our lives, we know how things are supposed to go, how church is supposed to look, sound, and smell. We know how our society is supposed to demand certain things of us at any given moment. We know what price we need to pay to get something we want, and then we carefully plan for it, even all the way through the end of retirement. Our minds tell our hearts that we know what it is to pray, to worship, to do faith. Yet in all that, we stand in the same place as Naaman, prepared for everything, except perhaps what actually happens. Those unexpected things challenge us and change us. I never wanted to be isolated from all of my friends, teachers, and classmates because of a pandemic right at the end of my seminary experience. Never in a million years did I ever want to be divorced. How could I ever have hoped to be blessed to live and work in the place that my soul calls home? What if faith isn't an action that we get to accomplish through our own efforts, and instead it's a gift, a package, something given to us by God? What if the task before us is mundane and repetitious? What if our church, its rituals, and even how we think about ourselves are subject to change, even radical change, in order to serve and follow Christ more closely? Those aren't exactly comfortable thoughts. That can feel disempowering, broken, even adversarial with God. And because we love St. Philip's, we love our faith and each other, we might feel a flame burning inside of us, only to find its way into our external lives as anger. Anger at change, at your priest, at God. I'm thankful that Naaman is our teacher today. Not because he storms off in honest reflection of how he's feeling, but because after that, he hears the words of his servants that love him like a father. That's how they refer to him. Father. And he hears their pleas. It takes courage to take up humility when anger is safer and stronger in our bellies. Courage to embrace mundane tasks that seem like they won't do anything. To give the grace of forgiveness to the ungraceful around us. To mentor in gentle faith the belligerent unfaithful. To share portion after portion of the love we have with those who would hoard it for themselves if they could. Bravery in submitting to the task of washing 7 times, that is, a complete number of times. To risk the shame even of returning, as Naaman does, to the place where he hears challenge from God coming from the prophet that he first rejected after having done exactly what was asked. Like Naaman, it takes bravery to come to God, having received a gift we can't pay for and couldn't earn. I pray to learn that lesson as Naaman did. And I pray too for all of us to learn it and share it. As unexpected, challenging, changing, and mundane as it may be. All we must do is wash and be clean if we have the courage